What's going on, everybody? This is Dean with East Coast Overland Adventures, and I'm coming to you with another video for the Overland Expo channel. And in this video, we're going to be going over some navigation resources and some of the different options there are out there that you can use on your trips, whether you're planning a trip, exploring an area, or just want to find something that'd be cool to check out. Now, when we talk about navigation resources, one of the analogies I always like to use is a funnel. And if you imagine a funnel has a big opening at the top and kind of narrows down to a small opening at the bottom, that's kind of how navigation resources work. So at the top of our funnel, we're going to cover the largest amount of area, but we're going to do so with the least amount of detail. And that's where something like a DOT map, a Department of Transportation map. Now, the best thing about these maps are they're free. Stop at any rest area, any welcome center. You can pick one of these things up for free. The nice thing is when you open it up, covers the hood of your vehicle, gives you the largest area, gives you the whole state. The downside is not very detailed. So for people like us who like to get off the beaten path, explore back roads and forests and those sorts of things, these maps usually don't have a whole lot of detail. When we work our way into the funnel a little bit, that's where something like this comes into play. This is an atlas. This is by Delorum. The nice thing is these things, again, they cover the whole state, but they give you a lot of detail throughout the state page by page. The only downside to one of these things is if you try to navigate with one of these, kind of turns into a sadistic choose your own adventure story where you're flipping back and forth. But when you combine these two resources together, you can cover the whole state, give yourself kind of that big picture view, but then zoom in on some areas of detail that you want to. Now, the next layer in when we're kind of working down that funnel is going to be something like a US Forest Service map. So this map right here is from Monongahela National Forest, and if I open this thing up, it covers the entire hood of my Jeep. But if you look at Monongahela National Forest on a state DOT map, it's about the size of my thumb. So as we move in down the funnel, the area of the map size is about the same. The paper size is the same, but the area of coverage gets a lot smaller, meaning the detail gets a lot better. Now, we can go even further into the funnel. In Monongahela National Forest is an area called Dolly Sods. Dolly Sods on the Monongahela map is about the size of my thumb. But right here, I have a map by Purple Lizard, which is of Dolly Sods. And again, this is the size of the hood of my Jeep. So if you imagine when we go from a state DOT map to US Forest Service map to one of these maps, which is kind of a specialty adventure map, you know, the level of detail is just getting finer and finer and finer because the area of coverage is getting smaller and smaller. Now, one of the other map resources out there is a pre-planned trip map. And that's where something like the Backcountry Discovery Route series comes into play. These are pre-planned trip routes that often go from one end of the state to the other end of the state. They started out west, but being from the East Coast, I'm partial to this one for the Mid-Atlantic area, which goes from the Virginia-Tennessee line all the way up to the Pennsylvania-New York line. Now, if you were to do something like this route, what you can do is actually stack this map with some of the other resources. Why? Well, it goes through the state of Virginia. So we've got the Virginia DOT map. We also have the Virginia Gazetteer. It goes through Monongahela National Forest. It goes through Dolly Sods. It goes up into Pennsylvania. So now we have a Pennsylvania atlas as well. Also goes into Michaud State Forest. So as you can see, as you start combining these different resources, you can use them in things like planning your trips, or if you're on the route, you now have other maps to cover areas around where you are exploring. Now, one of the other navigation resources that's out there are trail books. This series by Fun Treks is amazing because it gives you all the information on all of the different trails that are out there that you can explore. So if you want to know what the trail difficulty is, how long the trail is, what you can see along the way, or what other trails are in that area, books like this are indispensable. So even though you might have a map, that map is giving you the geographic reference of the area, but this trail is going to give you the very finite detail, super zoomed in. We're talking the very tip of that funnel. So it's the smallest opening. So this is only going to cover the trail. But when you combine this with the other resources, whether it's an adventure map, a DOT map, or even something like a BDR, this can give you a lot more detail on that area. So when it comes time to organize all of these resources, I have to admit I'm a little bit of a cheapskate, so I actually just use gallon Ziploc bags because they're actually big enough to fit the full Gazetteer. And when you look at them, you can also have things like the BDR map, and then also your specialty adventure maps I have these by latitude 40, which cover Moab trails east and west. So now I can combine these with something like the trail guide book for Moab to give me all the information on all the different trails that are in and around that central part of Utah. Now, the final navigation resource that I'll talk about is going to be digital. We all have cell phones. The app I'm partial to is Gaia GPS, but there are other great apps out there like Onyx or the Garmin Explore app, which also interfaces with other devices like the Garmin Overlander. And what's neat about these resources is just because you have the digital resource doesn't mean you can ignore the paper resources, because those paper resources don't require batteries, don't require internet, don't require a cell reception, and they don't break when you drop them. But let's face it, it's the modern era, it's the 21st century. We are going to do a lot of stuff with digital. One of the disadvantages when you're doing stuff with digital is you do a lot of pinching and zooming on your screen because it's relatively small. And that's one of the reasons why I like having the paper maps, to be able to open them up. Because if I can't find all of the information on my screen, I'll break out one of my maps, spread it out on the hood of my Jeep, relocate, find out where I am, and then I can go back to doing stuff on the app, on the phone, using that navigation device. The other thing is you can get some parity between something like a backcountry discovery route, which is in paper form, but also if you go to their website, ridebdr.com, you can download the GPX file and import it into your phone. There's also another website out there that I absolutely love that I use every time I go out west, and that is traildamage.com. Traildamage.com is basically a digital version of one of these books. It's like a Wikipedia of off-road trails. And I can go and download the GPX file for that trail and import it into my phone. So again, when I held up my bag earlier with all my Utah stuff in it, when I went out there for the first time, I had all of those paper resources. I had the Utah backcountry discovery route on my phone, and I went to traildamage.com, downloaded the top of the world trail, had that in my phone. So I had everything that I was doing with my phone, but then also I had all the paper resources to kind of back up and supplement that. Again, when you're using all this for trip planning, which we'll go into in another video, you can totally cover up an entire table and do all your research and fun stuff like that. So that's how some of these navigation resources kind of relate to each other, integrate with each other, and can also help you plan a really fun adventure. So thank you for watching this video on the Overland Expo channel. I have been Dean with East Coast Overland Adventures. Hope to see you out there.